Hello and welcome to Unwarranted Music Opinions, the show in which three music nerds throw music into each other's brains and we kind of just mush them around in there until we spout forth opinions. I'm June Lindberg here with Brian Courtney
Hello.
and Chaz Jenkins.
Abracadabra, boom shaka yay. I'm Chaz J, and I'm back like a vertebrae.
Oh, whoa.
That was
Bars.
something. That was really something. I did bar heat. Today's episode is centered on nostalgic albums that we either grew up with or are super nostalgic. We think back to a time that we may be embarrassed about, and we look at this music and we say, that represents this time. Maybe we still enjoy it. Maybe we don't still enjoy it. But at the end of the day, it's worth discussing because I think all of what we're talking about today probably has something to do at some level with how we shaped our music tastes when we were like
Little
13,
youth. Or 13.
Yeah, when we were kind of cringy young teenagers. So we're kicking things off today with my pick. And that is the 1995 album Soup by the band Blind Melon. So Blind Melon is a alternative rock band best known for the song No Rain. And as is the case for a lot of one-hit wonders, the song that was the biggest hit for them, No Rain, sounds the least like the rest of their discography. It's very upbeat. It's very almost happy. It is, when you look at it lyrically, not a very happy song, but sonically, it's an upbeat 90s alt rock fun tune that probably everyone has heard on the radio at some point or another. Soup does not have that track. Soup was the sophomore release. They'd already had No Rain, a couple other tunes, and this album primarily deals with the personal experiences and mindset of frontman Shannon Hoon, who would die, I believe, either the same year or the year after, from what I believe was a drug overdose. Died in 95, so the same year Shannon Hoon died. And this record is, I think it's deceptively depressive, but it also has a hint of hope to it. As an alt rock record, it's one of the ones that I think has aged the best from this era because of its influences of folk. And it's a little grittier, a little bit dirtier than stuff like, I don't know, consider other like radio alt rock coming out in the
I wouldn't call it
mid-90s.
Folk, more blues. I think there's some major blues vibes on
There's
this one.
blues,
Like
but
blues
listen to
rock.
That's almost there's blues rock, but also listen to tracks like Skins, listen to tracks like Walk. Both of those have almost Neil Young-esque folkiness to them. Even the tone of the guitars is a little bit, Rust Never Sleeps era, Godfather of grunge Neil Young. So their bass is definitely coming from blues rock, folk rock as well, and even just some straight up singer-songwriter stuff on a couple of tracks. I got into this band when I was like 14. This was my dad's favorite band, at least at the time. And I remember distinctly the summer before my freshman year of high school when I was in Michigan with my dad. And he just showed me his iTunes circa 2011 or something.
Oh, shit.
And it was Beck, Modest Mouse, Blind Melon, The White Stripes.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of stuff that I would go on to be very much into and obsessed with for the next 2 years of life. Oh, goodness. Little duck. Brian messaged a duck to me. Anyway. His toes rubbed.
I know. It's fucking awesome.
Good old duck. And so there was a time in my life where I listened to Blind Melon a lot. They don't have the same significance to me that they used to, but listening back to them now, I realize that this album did age really well for me. There are a couple songs that used to be favorites that I don't love as much, but at the end of the day, it has some absolutely fantastic tracks on it, and it's well worth checking out. So what did you all think of Blind Melon?
Well, before we get started, so what changed? Why did this band fall off you, but like White Stripes, Beck, Modest Mouse, those didn't, of like the stuff your dad showed you?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that those bands didn't fall off the way that Blind Melon did. In fact, I'd be hard pressed to say that any of those bands ever really fell off. I think it's probably because Beck and White Stripes and Modest Mouse all have longer, expansive discographies with a lot of different sounds, and Blind Melon was kind of one mood for 2 albums. Blind Melon is kind of angsty, kind of it's got that classic 90s alt rock sound, and I was getting more into indie and underground and folky and singer-songwriters and stuff. I was like I was getting into the Pixies.
Yeah, okay.
Tom Waits.
I thought this had some stuff in common with like Modest Mouse when I was listening to it.
It did, but it's definitely alt rock rather than indie rock.
That's probably more of a factor of the times they were made in than any other. You know what I mean? Like it's probably just they were influenced by the sounds, like other contemporary sounds. Like it's probably not that they have a whole lot in common other than they were made in the same era, right? Like it's kind of
well, I mean, you could probably trace the lineage of both bands back to Washington State,
right?
Because grunge gave birth to, well, it didn't give birth to alt rock, but there's definitely grunge elements of Blind Melon sound, and that came from Washington State, and Modest Mouse come from Washington State. A lot of those bands are intermingling.
Yeah, it seems to me that while the grunge scene was very brief, it's not. It's more complex than people understand it to be.
Yeah, it is true.
So, to give my thoughts on this, I think it's a solid album for sure. I don't think it's anything mind-blowing, though. That's kind of where I'm at right now with it. This music doesn't connect with me as much as I thought it would, because when you listen to those first few tracks, it's very punchy, upbeat. The drums and the bass licks are really palpable and very dancey, like a very jumpy kind of groove. It honestly reminded me a little bit of like Red Hot Chili Peppers or some early Pearl Jam kind of thing, especially in the production, that the way the bass and guitars and drums sound. It really reminds me of like 10 era Pearl Jam and like Blood, Sex, Sugar, Magic, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I was really surprised by it. And it gave it really cool, that with like the mix of blues rock gave it a really cool identity. But the more listens, I don't want to say generic, because that's too harsh of a word, but it just really didn't connect
kind
with
of
me.
Plateaus. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
My enjoyment sort of plateaus with it. I think I feel similarly.
Yeah, so that's kind of where it was. What helped a little bit more was the lyrical content. Most of my feelings when it comes to albums like this stem from the lyrics were kind of disappointing. Actually, lyrically, that's the best thing about this album. I love the way they talk about drug addiction and his experiences with it in a very quirky, tongue-in-cheek kind of way. And that's not all that this album is, too. There's a lot of silly songs as well with some interesting song topics. The most notable one being obviously Skinned. A great humorous, dark humor look on like a cannibal. Just hilarious. I love the line about the rib cage table. Like, and they repeat it like, a table made from from a rib cage. Like, huh. I really like that. That's a really fun moment. And yeah, it's very introspective, which I'm always a fan of. The pacing's a little rough, though. At 40-something minutes, near the back half, like the last 3 tracks, even though the closer, Lemonade, is banging, I'm kind of tuning out. I'm starting to kind of get a little bored with it, especially because the sound Does it change a whole lot? There's a few, as you mentioned, June, there's a few moments that are kind of change up the pace a little bit, but a lot of it, like once you hear the first track, that's pretty much what you're going to be in for the rest of the album. So I think near the back half, I just start to kind of like get a little bored. But Lemonade is a strong closer. I love the chorus on that track. Overall, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I think the best things about it are the production. The songwriting is very nice, and I love the way the drums are played and the bass. The bass and drums are like the highlights, I think, of the whole record. And lyrically, it's pretty strong. But something about this alt rock sound, you know, even though it's like an era of music I really love, something about it just, there's not enough that makes it, like you could argue that the blues rock aspects makes it stand out amongst the crowd, but I don't know. I feel like they dive too much into the alt rock sound than the blues rock sound, I think. And I think that's...
Yeah, I mean, a lot of alt rock from this era does sound kind of samey, especially to modern ears whenever bands have been doing stuff like this for the next 20 years.
I think a lot of the elements, I'm going to use June's opportunity, yawn as an opportunity to interrupt her. There's some like jammy aspects on here too, that, you know what I mean? Like they'll kind of go on extended jam, not extended jam so much, but they'll jam for like a minute or as a bridge kind of in a song too. They do that quite a bit. And it's cool. It sounds good, but a lot of the time too, I think it does get a little bit repetitive.
It's not as like quirky or unique as a lot of indie rock bands around the time were. It's definitely has it has a mainstream appeal. There are songs on this record that were hits, Galaxy, for example. However, the thing that makes it stand apart for me is, like Chaz said, the introspection. I also think there's some really great folky acoustic bits on this record. Skins is a fun track, but the track Walk is, I think, one of the best tracks on the record.
Best song. The most...
It is.
The one time where I'm like, oh, the energy. It really, it's like... It's placed so perfectly on the album because I'm listening to the tracks. I'm like, okay, kind of getting into this vibe. Okay, I'm kind of getting bored. Then Walk hits. I'm like, oh shit. Okay, now what's happening? And then we kind of, all right, blah blah blah. And then it ends strong with Lemonade. That's kind of like how I am with it. It's sort of a background album, but
the Walk, I think, is also lyrically probably the most impressive. Talking about being on top of a mountain where you can see everything because he's too paranoid, and just talking about his mental state, getting a lot of musical cues from, like I said, 70s folk artists like Neil Young. It sounds very Neil Young, the way the acoustic guitar works in that song. And it's probably, I would say, out of everything here, probably my favorite track also.
Yeah,
on the record.
That's a great tune. Like the harmonica adds so much to that song. I really love the harmonica shit in there. Brian, what do you think?
I think it's cool. I like it all right, pretty much. I think there's a lot of elements I like. I think it gets a little bit samey a lot of the time. I like Shannon Moore as a performer. I like his lyrics. I think he has some great vocal performances. Skinned in particular is one that I thought was really, really memorable. Honestly, my favorite part of the album is like the first 30 seconds, like is the intro to Galaxy. I love that part. I was hoping the whole album would be that way.
I wish there was some more Louisiana blues kind of like parade kind of thing going on, but they don't really. Yeah, I feel the same way.
I think it's fine because it's still a really good song. It's still a good album too. Lyrically, I like his approach. I just didn't find myself clicking with it all that much.
Yeah.
I just thought I ended up enjoying it pretty much as I could without connecting to it personally. And I do agree it's a little weak on the like towards the last three. I don't think it closes very strong. I don't think it like leaves a strong impression at the very end. But I do think throughout there's quality songs, quality songwriting, and quality performances. It's hard to hate it. I don't feel necessarily all that strong about it.
The production, the playing, the vibe, it is strong. It's just that alt rock. It's like very radio. It's made for radio. It's really got that made for radio stamp there.
I like that.
It's not quite. I mean, I wouldn't say it's made for radio because it's a little darker than a lot of radio rock.
But a lot of songs that got popular around this time were very sad songs that sounded very happy.
Yeah, and but this album it wasn't nearly as much of a success as the first record because their first record sounded happier, even though it was still ultimately a sad lyrical exploration. Soup, I mean, even the difference in the covers, like the B Girl, the very, very iconic 90s music video B-girl for No Rain. Kind of silly and weird and kind of fun. And then Soup is just a dude,
Eating some soup.
Just eating some soup. He's got kind of a beard and a mustache going on. And I think that definitely shows the difference in approach on this record. This is a starker album than their debut. It's it's a more depressive record. And the sad thing is, with Shannon Hoon dying in the same year, it makes a song like a new life. This track about I might be having a kid, is this going to bring some kind of normalcy? Is this going to help me as a person grow? I can see hope in the future.
It reminds me of how like Jim Croce died, that singer-songwriter who wrote "I Got a Name," who like died on a plane crash and was having some problems at home. I think I just read about that recently. It's kind of similar to that in a few ways.
I think St. Andrew's Fall has one of the best acoustic passages on the whole record.
I think that's the most dynamic song on the whole thing. The way that there's a freak out in the middle and then like the ending gets a little poetic.
A track that I still really enjoy, but that I used to enjoy a lot more, is Mouthful of Cavities.
That's a good one.
I like that song now.
That's a good one.
I think it's a good song, but it is a little cheesy almost to me nowadays, especially with the jam at the end and with
its placement is bad. I don't like its placement. That's one of the few songs I like that song, but yeah, that back half. I mean, man, I'm tuning out on those last 3 tracks. Even though I like Lemonade, I'm like bored.
See, for me, Lemonade is a low light of the record. I don't think that.
Wow, really?
The guitar tone sounds very good.
I love the chorus on that song. Give me my lemonade. I love the way he says that.
I think that his vocal delivery is pretty cool, but I don't like the arrangement or the composition of the track. I think that there are some like really questionable passages that I just melodically, this just doesn't go anywhere.
As it stands, I'm thinking a decent 7. I liked it a lot. There's just some things that are just not that particularly mind-blowing. It's the best example of a decent 7 for me, I think.
Yeah, I would pretty much echo that exact sentiment. I think it's really good. I don't really connect with it in any way. It's worth hearing, but it's not something that was standing out to me enough to connect to it.
It's a flawed record for sure, but I still think some of the tracks here are fantastic. I think that some of the songs that I didn't really connect to that much when I was younger connect more now, like New Life, I think is an underrated track on the record. And St. Andrew's Fall as well. So I'm going to give this like a strong 8.
Wow.
It definitely has a personal connection.
Well, yeah, this is nostalgic albums. Yeah. I was not expecting.
Yeah,
I was thinking.
The thing about it is it's all emotion at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And art is complex and we have complex reasons for liking art. And if one of those reasons is because it makes you feel a certain way because it reminds you of certain things, that's completely valid. And I know that's a long conversation to have.
Yeah, I disagree with you. I actually disagree with you. No, I don't. I don't disagree with you. I'm sorry. I'm yelling.
I'm shouting.
So the album I picked is The Great Milenko, released in 1997 by self-proclaimed axe murderers, Faygo lovers, fat chick thrillers, and infamously iconic horrorcore group Insane Clown Posse. Now, this is true nostalgia for me. Formed by Violet J and Shaggy 2 Dope. First starting as wrestlers, funny enough, turned to rappers. One of the first to do it, actually. Beating fucking John Cena like by a decade.
What?
And, like wrestlers to rappers, you know?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I misheard you. Okay. No, that's technically correct.
Yeah.
But there were other wrestler rappers. Have you ever heard of, oh my God, who is it? It's Mabel and Mo. Men on a Mission. New generation era wrestling. Go ahead. Don't worry about this. So, tribe. You beat me to the Juggalo Championship Wrestling thing.
Yeah. Insane Clown Posse need no introduction. I mean, they're one of the most well-known bands of all time, but to me personally, since this is nostalgic, sixth to seventh grade, I was really into this band. I was in class with this weird fucking kid. His name was Chris. He looked exactly how you would expect him to look, being a fan of this band. He had
They're all called Chris. All those kids, their name is always Chris, isn't it?
he had on his binder, his school binder, like Juggalo stickers and like the Axe Murderer logo. Yep. Yeah. And he's like, "You ever heard of this band called Insane Clown Posse?" I'm like, my impressionable mind was like, "No, what's that? That sounds cool as shit." So
proof that the interests of children should be policed.
So I wasn't a huge album listener for these guys. It was way more singles. Had a lot of songs from all different eras of their work on my phone and stuff that I listened to. But this album arguably has my favorite song by them. And it's arguably, yeah, really. It's arguably their best album? ? It's the most realized with its concept. It's the most, has the most character, I think, and has one of my favorite songs by them on it. So it just made the sense to pick this one.
Oh yeah, we never did figure that out, right? Fuck, we both never said our favorites when we talked about this.
We saved it for the discussion. Though. We saved it for the discussion.
Good shit, man. That's paying off.
So, Insane Clown Posse, Juggalos, the whole thing is like this big concept that Shaggy, Two Dope, and Violent J don't really go all that in depth with. It's sort of just a basis for the music, but sometimes they really do take it to a very artistic level that is pretty interesting and kind of cool. It makes so much sense that I was into this band because let's look at my track record. What kind of music was I listening to in middle school? Buckethead, Daft Punk, fucking any Residents. I was into bands that...
The image was important.
Masks, like Masked. Yeah. So, of course, when it came to rap, Insane Clown Posse just made... I wish I knew MF Doom back then. It would have made perfect sense. But, so the lore of Insane Clown Posse... How should I describe this? Basically...
Are you going to go into this?
No. There's so much there. But basically, at the end of the day, just like Wu-Tang Clan, they're big dorks. It's all about like this crazy... It's like the coming of the apocalypse is like this carnival game and all these different figures that they have albums named after. Like these figures of this lore are going to come and basically bring destruction amongst the sinners or some shit like that. One of these being the Great Milenko, which is what this concept is about. This evil magician thing. It's all crazy.
I appreciate you explaining it. It basically doesn't come up.
Exactly. It means absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
But it's important to bring up because it's a huge part of the image of the band. It's important to mention.
Yeah, the aesthetic of the band is honestly probably more influential than any of the music they've released, to be 100% real. Like their image has been their selling point and their ethos that they kind of represent in and out of their music.
However, listening back on this, it's actually not that bad. It was better than I ever thought it would be listening back on it. Give my thoughts. Lyrically, this is a fucking cesspool. However, there are some gems to be found by sifting through this mud. There are some gems, some actual great gems.
This is true.
The best thing about this album is the music and the production. Some fantastic beats and choruses and songwriting. Through the hour and 7 runtime, might I add.
Which honestly, to be honest, wasn't really that bad.
It wasn't.
It wasn't.
Yeah, it really wasn't that bad.
It actually paces, it flows pretty decently.
Pretty much. Yeah, no, I wouldn't disagree.
The biggest surprise is that runtime is not that bad. It really is not that bad. And that is because a lot of the songs here are pretty memorable, very distinct. A lot of great choruses and memorable moments and some skits that are stupid as hell, but give a lot of character to the record and a lot of times make me chuckle. But lyrically, it's rough as hell. What'd you guys think?
There's just some lowlights lyrically. Like that's really like overall, it's I mean, look, it's not great, but like it's not like sometimes it's offensive, sometimes it's a little edgy, sometimes it's kind of stupid. But I didn't find it to be unpalatable, honestly.
Well, and it's
I
never,
think, you know,
it never gets to
a
the
lot
point.
of it is coming through this cartoonishly violent lens
Yeah.
that sometimes for me personally is like, well, that's maybe a bit much for me, but like sometimes it's also like, I mean, this is completely ridiculous. Like, you know,
Yeah.
it only ever comes off mean spirited on like the Ned song a little bit to me, but I don't find it to be like the worst thing ever. I just think it's a little bit mean spirited on that song in particular. And one of the skits about like the guy calling, like, you know, he's like, I'm gonna kill myself, and he's like, you won't fucking do it, and then, you know, but even then they honestly do kind of make that situation funny because like the gun goes off and then like he's like, hello, and he goes, yeah, I'm still here. He's like, I knew you fucking like, you know, they understand that the premise is ridiculous. Like it doesn't feel
Well, there's so
you know,
many moments.
The only thing we have it to compare to is like the Meat Men,
Well,
right? Like where it was like, well, this feels actually mean.
Well, exactly, because we said this many times. The problem with the Meat Men in our Stormtroopers of Death discussion is that there's never a time where the curtain is pulled back saying, hey, this is a joke, or we're just going all out because we want to be edgy. There's so many moments throughout this album that it's so obvious it's played up for the characters, the concept, the lore, and it's just to be meant as over the top, as ballsy as possible to just get reactions out of you. I mean, it's clearly that. There's never a moment where it's like, oh shit, did they really mean that? Kind of thing. I never feel that by listening to it.
There's also the benefit of the doubt when you look at, like, obviously there's so much discussion about the fan base of ICP and ICP as people. But I think in 2021, like, if all you're doing is wearing clown makeup and you're into a funny rap group, what's the big deal? Like,
yeah,
I feel like a lot of younger people are looking at ICP, which have been a group has been hated for a very long time, and saying, really, you have an issue with these guys who are like anti-racist and are like accepting of people? Like, why?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
They're kind of cringy, but they're just kind of LARPing in their own weird clown way.
Exactly.
And it's like, okay, fine. If that's your thing, that's your thing. And like, even on this record from 1995, there are some lyrics that are about like, you know, sending racists to hell or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool.
I saw a rim comment from an older review of this album saying they talk about hating rednecks, which is their fan base. And I'm like, wow, you missed the point by a mile, my guy.
They make fun of rednecks. That is, and I have my own issues with rednecks as a term, but we're not going to get into the cultural fucking shit that I've ranted about before. Not even on this show. Anyway, they're making fun of the shitty people.
Yeah. They're
not necessarily opening their doors to shitty people. Whether or not the audience or the fan base are shitty or not, I don't even really know. But I think that this record, given a little bit of a benefit of the doubt based on what they have said in interviews, can be looked upon as generally not mean-spirited.
Mm-hmm. Would agree. Except for 2 songs.
Except for a couple moments.
There are 2 songs that I just don't like. The only thing I really like about them is that, again, across the board, the beat, the production is fantastic. Like, surprisingly pretty great. Especially like for 90s horrorcore. It's pretty fantastic.
I think it's just, I love how blown out it is a lot of the time. Like, it's not clean at all. Like, the guitars are really loud and blown out, and then everything is kind of coming together in this like rap rock, more of a mess than a mix, but it just sort of works.
Yeah.
A lot of the beats are really lumbering. There's lots of high keys in the background, kind of making that horror atmosphere, right? Like kind of stabby little key, or sometimes just some like eerie melodies going on. You know, like so sonically, it's more than palatable. It's pretty good throughout. Like there's not like there are a few, like you said, like a few songs. I think we agree that like Under the Moon, I think Chaz, and we talked a little bit
worst
about
song
isn't
It's
Yeah,
lyrically the
so
one time
sleepy.
where I'm like, okay, you all are just taking this too far. It's too edgy. It's so angry white boy to the point where I'm like, oh, come on. It's so
Oh wait, is
bad.
that Under the Moon, or do you mean How Many Times?
Both. Well, How Many Times at least has some funny moments. I love the line about, I stay in this fucking line. It's probably a car crash. Hope nobody died. And I look and get there and the car crash is on the other side. I like that line. That one's funny. But that song is just so melodramatic. It's so stupid. Under the Moon is legitimately the worst song on here. I think that is so white boy angry, hate, dumb shit. It's the type of song that like, I hate my parents. Under the moon, like, yeah, that's right. Dog, bleh. Get it out of here.
I don't mind the lyrics. Like, it's the tune just isn't there for me. It's such a boring song, and it goes on for far too long. And that's kind of the case for a couple. Like, a lot of the songs on here really like this need 5.5 minutes. You know, like that's how it feels a lot of the time.
I agree. But it's not. That's more of a nitpick for me because again, the choruses on here for most of the songs are pretty fantastic. So
let's talk about like some of the funnier lyrical moments.
Yeah,
because I think they're like highlights. They're serious highlights. Like every time the What Is a Juggalo, where he's like, he'll take Monopoly and shit, he'll eat Monopoly and shit out Connect Four. And I love that I think it's Violent J goes to start the next verse, and he's like, he stops mid-verse and he's like, Connect Four, what the fuck are you talking about? And then he's just like, shut up, rap, just rap. Like he was like, we gotta move on. Like I've already said it. Fucking hilarious. On Boogie Woogie Woo, there's one kind of funny moment, one really funny one. The kind of funny one is like when he's like, I'm sneaking into your room, but you leave your shit all over the floor. He's like stepping on Legos and shit. And then I fucking laugh every single time the kid so it's a song about like the boogeyman coming to kill children. And then I love every single time the line on that song where the kid goes, Mommy, can you leave the door open? And Violent J, as the boogeyman, just goes, thanks. It's fucking hilarious. It's actually really, so fucking funny.
It really shows that these guys get such a bad rap. When they're focused, they really can make some great music.
Well,
I'm not even kidding, great music.
To be fair, we're looking at kind of like an isolated incident. Their discography is very big. Like
that is
there's
true.
a lot of albums. Like I mean, a lot of it could be fucking awful.
That is true.
I don't know if we should go off one example, right? Like I mean, I like this album for the most part, but I don't know. There's a lot more, right, that we don't really know about.
That's true.
For all we know, the jokes even get like raunchier or whatever. Like we don't really know.
That's true. I don't know. Their early stuff is pretty well. Actually.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of songs from different eras, but
I will say. I do want to say. This is kind of circling back a little bit, but on some of the instrumentals, I think my favorite two songs instrumentally, or my favorite. Sorry, I have one definitive favorite. Actually, it's Halls of Illusions. Fucking
yes.
Only song on here. Only song on here instrumentally, I would say, is like actually a little bit of a stunner. It's just
the guitars
and in your face,
and it's their
it's
in my opinion
loud.
Best song on the album. It's the most realized with their concept.
That is your best pick.
Yeah,
nice.
That's the most realized with their concept. It's the strongest lyrically, and that fucking chorus, like. Great, Milenko, wave your wand. Don't look now, your life is gone. Awesome.
Yeah, that's a great hook too.
Awesome.
It's a really great song.
What's your favorite song, Brian? What's your favorite?
It's not my favorite. My favorite song overall is probably Pass Me By, The Closer. I honestly love that song. I think it's so awesome.
Way. That's a great song.
I think it's so cool. It's such a different point of view, especially for this album. It's the only song that's really like it on this album. I think the beat is really pretty. I think the lyrics are really sobering, even though they're not poetic necessarily. Especially like Shaggy Two Dope, like he's kicking it on the beach. You're fucking suffering, but I love the attitude is really strong on that
that's
one. And
cool.
It's genuinely a really corny upbeat rap song that I think is pretty fucking great. It's easily the best song here for me.
Love the beat.
Everything else is so cartoony and like that I'm at a level where I can appreciate. Because sometimes the songs won't land because of that, like House of Horrors, case in point, or Hallelujah, or Hallelujah, whatever.
Oh, I like Hallelujah. I think
don't really like those songs at all. Hallelujah is just like fish in a barrel, and I don't think the way they kind of go after what they're talking about on the track is all that. It's whatever, because the song isn't really there either, like tunefully.
Yeah.
And the album falls off a fucking cliff at Hallelujah. Like just a couple of not very good songs in a row, and then we get Pass Me By, thankfully, which is like, oh.
So
okay,
to talk about some of my
we stuck the landing.
Favorite choruses, The great Milenko chorus is great. Great Milenko. Great.
Those on too long though.
I know. Well, Hocus Pocus is a great chorus. Piggy Pie's got a great chorus. Southwest Voodoo.
Oh, Piggy Pie. Fuck me.
Southwest Voodoo is so catchy.
I don't like that song either.
What? Southwest Voodoo.
Well, not that much.
Yeah.
It's okay. I know there's a line. I can't remember what it is in particular. I think there's a really funny line on there about a shrunken head that I thought was really good, but I can't remember it exactly. My favorite things about this are just bits and pieces of it. I don't even know. Taking it song by song is a little unfair because it's really just moment to moment. There are some standouts, don't get me wrong, and overall it's cool. But like, I look at like What Is a Juggalo? A song that like is like, I don't really love it all that much, but like when I'm listening to it, I'm like, man, Juggalos are like a little bit trashy. Like this is an accurate description. Also, dude, when he says they're fucking Hulkamaniacs, I was like, dude, I might be a Juggalo. I don't know.
Well, I love
I'm kind of a Hulkamaniac.
That song is basically a big troll because the chorus literally is like, what is a Juggalo? Well, fuck if I know. Like, they don't even know. They don't even know. I get the joke of that song is that all these things are fucking ridiculous. So it's obviously not true about their fan base.
Yeah, that's true.
And the idea is like,
but it also, I mean, if you've seen like, what is their big concert? Like they basically have like a festival. What is it called?
Like the Juggalo Fest or
it's,
something?
No, dude, it's got a
Gathering of the Juggalos.
What is it? Gathering of the Juggalos. Yeah. It's massive. I mean, they're massively popular to be able to do something like that. Also, they have like their own like label, and let's not forget, like in terms of like them as a conglomerate, right? There are groups like Twisted and like Your Dead Homie Blaze, like who are members of this basically became like a huge like posse of like clown rappers, right? There's so many in that regard. I mean, you can go on YouTube and look up like ICP Cypher. There's one that they made not too long after Juggalos were considered like a gang, I think at a federal level,
so,
right? They did one for there's tons of that stuff.
All in all, I think it's pretty consistent. June, you never really got your thoughts in. I really want to know because I knew Brian would be a little bit more on the memeier side with me of why I enjoyed this so much. But June Lindbergh, this is like so out of left, like so not for June that I need to know what June thinks.
I don't love this thing, and it's like, it's an hour long. It doesn't necessarily justify the length. But the thing that I was surprised about the most was that the production is actually pretty good. Some of these bass lines are actually solid. Everything just sounds nice. Like, it's not really well mixed or anything, but like, it's fun production. It's not boring.
I just want to interject real quick and just say, like, you saying bass lines, this is what we'll get into next, but you saying bass lines is just so damning for my opinion. You're so fucking, like, the bell is tolling. I love that these two dudes who probably had this fucking scrap and grind for the money to get the studio came out with more decent beats than a fucking multi-millionaire rapper. And
Facts.
His fucking buddy
lyrically, we have some things to say for the next discussion.
Lyrically, would you say overall, let's just start shitting on mine. June, you might have more to say, but I just want to say, let me
better lyrically and musically.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of enjoyable just to throw it on for an hour. It's nothing that you're going to look too far into. At least for me personally, I don't get a lot out of analyzing anything here. Solid song.
Love the
genuinely
beat. That's
a solid
cool.
track.
That's cool.
It's kind of funny. It's less of a joke than the rest of the songs, and it kind of proves that they do have some level of talent, and it's not just a gimmick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think their cartoonishness and their straightforwardness is a strength.
Well,
right?
and it's
just
crazy.
I don't necessarily love what they do with it a lot.
It's crazy that the rock elements are some of the best moments on here, because usually that's a genre that can get cringy real fucking fast, and it surprisingly goes over pretty well when it's here. I am gonna go with a light 8 because goddamn, the character, every song, despite its quality, is super memorable. Almost every chorus is surprisingly catchy. The production is fantastic. Shaggy, Two Dope, and Violent J are hilarious sometimes. And the over-the-topness I can just get behind 100% without feeling like dirty, And it has more humor and better character than anything Meatman probably ever made. So it's cool in my book.
Oh, I'm going to give this like a light 6. Like, it's fine. It's actually, I'm not giving it a negative score, which is surprising. Like, I'm giving a positive score to this Insane Cloud Posse record. I think it's not as bad as people say it is. It's actually kind of good at the end of the day, and probably worth listening to at least once, especially if you're into this kind of super goofy, over the top caricatures in hip hop. Like, yeah, like there's not really much of a reason to not at least check this thing out once or twice.
Yeah, I mean, I would go with like a light to decent 6. It's cool. I mean, it's kind of cool. I get the appeal. It just doesn't appeal to me all that strongly. And honestly, a lot of my enjoyment is chalked up to just like some funny shit they say. Like they just, some funny bars and 2 really great standout songs. I'd say listen. I think the group is maybe a little bit overhated in that regard. If you don't like it, whatever, right? But like I like. And if you think someone who listens to them is a stupid person, I don't know every individual, right? But like, as far as just the group and the music goes, this really wasn't like the worst thing ever. Like, there's so much worse shit out there, even just like today. So my pick was the collaborative rap album, Bad Meets Evil, Hell the sequel, from the group Bad Meets Evil. It's kind of hard to introduce because anyway, it's Bad Meets Evil, Hell the sequel. They're technically their first album. They did do a mixtape together as Bad Meets Evil. The 2 rappers are Eminem and Royce da 5'9".
And there's a song called Bad Meets Evil on the Slim Shady LP, I believe. That also features. Yeah,
you're right.
That also features Royce da 5'9".
Right, which is the group is Royce da 5'9" and Eminem, 2 very famous Detroit rappers. Eminem, megastar, and Royce da 5'9", a famous Detroit rapper, it's fair to say, who's had a couple of records, even in the last few years, that have gotten pretty big praise from hip-hop fans. Known mainly for their, and you really got to bear with me here, people have enjoyed them for their lyricism a lot of the time. They're technically gifted rappers, and that's pretty much what this album is supposed to be, is them flexing technical rap prowess with like braggadocious bars. There's not a lot of room for anything meaningful to be said. There's not a lot of substance. And look, that's fine. It's just them, it's Bad Meets Evil. They're supposed to be these really bad characters. Literally, they're called Bad Meets Evil. Bad being Royce, evil being Eminem. And it's like they're supposed to bring out they're supposed to have the worst qualities, and they're supposed to be bad people on the album. So, that's forming a lot of the content here, I think. And we did the deluxe version because this is what I remembered from a lot of the songs I remembered, honestly, some of the best songs are on the deluxe version. Because there's not really many. If you just look at like the original one, there is not a lot. Like those bonus tracks, I think this is the one time we really actually could have used the bonus tracks to kind of make this thing a little bit better. Really, it's just one of the bonus tracks. Okay, so this isn't very good. Let's just get it out of the way. Not very good. Has aged poorly for a couple of reasons.
Yeah.
Let's just get into what's wrong with it.
Well, no. I'd like to say what I like about it first before we. This is all on the surface. On the surface. Great flows. I mean, these guys are gifted rappers for a reason. They're on top of the beat. The cadences are great. The flows are always switching up. There's a lot of like moments that they're switching up their flows and stuff. On the surface,
there's back and forth too between each of them.
Pretty cool. A lot of charisma. I mean, Eminem and Royce da 5'9", as you mentioned, are veteran Detroit rappers who have so much charisma and character. Eminem is one of the most well-known rappers of all time, obviously. Some cool beats and choruses. I like some of the choruses on here from time to time. They're kind of catchy. A little poppy, which is fine. But a lot of the choruses on here, well, again, this is things I like. I like some of the choruses. Some of the choruses. It flows surprisingly decent. And it doesn't slog for me. I really don't feel the runtime either. Surprisingly across the board, no sloggage, except for June's. Surprisingly. But that's
shockingly.
You're telling me that ICP doesn't slog at all?
No,
that's a little silly.
No.
Oh, you.
No.
I will say I don't know. The back half of Soup and the back half of ICP are kind of equal to me in their sluggishness.
Okay.
ICP ends better, I think. But all the stuff before it happens too, right?
So Bad Meets Evil. That's where it stops. I mean, because the biggest problem with this album is that to enjoy it, you've got to turn your brain off. If you even attempt to dig into it, it's gonna crumble like a cookie in milk. It's bad, man. It's bad. So
okay, so now that we're talking about bad things,
yeah,
I just want to say when you were talking about the choruses, the best choruses here are or like a female vocalist. Well, I say best. What I mean to say is every single chorus just about is like is like one, like I'm on everything. It's just a sample used really uncreatively to just be a hook. They don't even really modify, like they chop it up a little bit, but it's really not all that crazy. A Kiss and Echo. Oh, Echo has the worst fucking hook ever. Eminem has always had these songs where he has these like arena rock sensibilities for hooks, but they just clash so ugly with what he's doing.
I hate when he does a chorus. It's always a bad time. Like Eminem has never.
He's the general.
Eminem has never in the entire time he's done it.
He has penned good choruses. He has absolutely
very rarely.
Criminal is a great.
Decade and a half.
What'd you say?
Not in the past 15 years.
Yeah. It said like something happened. Let me get my spiel off Eminem. Eminem in the 90s, classic horrorcore, hardcore rap, needs no introduction. Something happened.
There's a lot of baggage.
After the Eminem show. Something changed in that man when it came to
drugs happened. Like, not even kidding. I'm not like there was a lot of, I mean, and look, I'm not shitting on the dude for this. This is totally different than like, I don't like his music, but like a lot of his music, and he's even like he's said like on Encore, Relapse, those two albums in particular, he has kind of gone on disowned because one, he was on drugs, one he was like in rehab before, so he's kind of disowned them. But to be honest, and I feel a little bad saying this because the dude struggle, but like the content of his character has not really changed all that much since those two albums.
Yeah.
like his general outlook in rap, his general like messages he has in his rap songs are maybe a little less pessimistic, maybe a little less harsh in some ways, but like content wise, it's really not that
dude
different.
There are rappers better than Eminem who weren't born yet the last time Eminem made a good album.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of true. It's kind of true.
Here's
okay.
Well,
what were you gonna say?
My take on it is separating the art from the artist. Something happened musically where it's like anything worth liking about the guy musically was just gone. And it's funny that you mentioned that he disowned those two albums, because listening to this, you wouldn't think so. He name drops Relapse twice on this fucking record. It's like, dude, we get it.
To be fair, he references them jokingly because that accent, fuck me. That album gets a lot of shit for him hopping into like these weird accents on songs and like doing weird voices. So he is like taking the piss out of himself a little bit there. A quality that is not like held on for whatever reason.
Yeah, like, for real.
Kind of lost that ability to do that.
Yeah, so something happened, and it's just like anything. I kind of like Recovery. I like some of the new stuff. That's fine. But lately, it's a cesspool, dude. It's a fucking
still
cesspool.
Write good songs. He just doesn't. Like, I don't know what. I don't know what's
production.
Happening.
The production choices he makes.
You know what would be great? Look, we're kind of getting off track because we're supposed to be talking about Hell the sequel here. But you know what would be great? I would love if like, and look, I don't know if either of them would do this. Like, two producers are kind of my great producers. Pretty much no one would disagree with this. Madlib and Alchemist. I would love if Eminem was like, just literally get them to make beats with you and just do something like that. And let's just see what happens over their beats. Let's just see what happens. Let's see what creative chemistry kind of comes out. Because they're really great producers and they've been able to get some of the best rap albums ever out of people. Madlib especially. Madlib is a fucking production legend in hip hop. But like he just instead opts to make these poorly mixed fucking horrible pop culture ripoff songs because he's rich enough to get a Joan Jett sample. It's the worst fucking thing in my life I've ever heard a lot of the time.
So bringing it back,
and that's the case here too.
Yeah, the production is the worst. Well, the second worst thing about this album is the production. Everything is just so muddied and not mixed well, and the choruses don't hit as hard as they
the worst thing.
No.
I think it's the worst thing.
No.
Kills these fucking songs.
If it was instrumental, maybe. If it was instrumental, you would be correct. But it's not. So
there's some rappers on here.
Yeah. So this should have been like in the lore, it's like, oh, this should have been killer. You've got two Detroit rapper legends who've worked together so many times, had some beef, but are coming together as one for this big collab project. Like, hell, this is epic as shit. And really, when you read these lyrics, not a damn thing is said that's worthwhile. Like, lyrically, this is a fucking train wreck. It should tell you in spades how bad lyrically this album is. When you take any lyric, like you just cherry pick any lyric from ICP, and it's better than anything on here. Now, granted,
I literally have in my notes.
There's a couple.
in my notes, in my notes on Fastlane, I literally have "oh shit, homophobic bars, let's go." I mean, like it's definitely more mean spirited on this album,
like
for sure.
Obviously,
for
Eminem
sure.
and Royce da 5'9" have better flows, better cadences, better lyrical abilities that ICP never will have. But ICP has so much more character, more like zaniness, more just something so much more worthwhile than anything said on here, and more memorable too. I don't remember a damn bar of this, except that's
I do
not
think there are a
bad.
handful of bars
That are bad and memorable in that respect, like the penis in your
No,
anus.
I think there's a couple good ones.
The penis
I
in
think
your
there's a couple
anus
good ones.
line is fucking awful. There's a line.
Look, I'm not
Got a penis in
disagreeing.
Uranus.
I'm
There's a
not
line-
disagreeing that it's mostly
There's a line where Royce
cringe.
da
It is,
5'9"
but-
just doesn't want to be with this chick because she says swagger, but then literally Eminem says the fucking word swagger in a song later on, and that's perfectly
Dude.
fine. Stupid.
that part where he's like, you just used the word swagger, so no. The back of my skull starts to swallow my face. Like, it is the fucking worst.
I literally folded in on myself. I fucking
I
origami.
Yeah, I just lawn chair. It's awful. There are a couple. So I just want to point out a couple good lines on here. Now hold on. There's I have notes, and there are not many notes about the good bars. But the opening track is like not so fucking bad. Like the line where it's like, to find someone this raw on a beat is rare. I thought that was actually kind of a cool line by Eminem on that song. The Die Hard like tirade on that part is a little much, but it's not like the worst thing in the fucking world. Like, it's ridiculous, but it is like not the worst thing in the world.
Right.
Musically, the worst crime this record commits is being really boring. Like, it's rare that there's a moment on this record sonically where I'm like, oh God, why? Except for Bruno Mars. That's the
Dude, lighters? What
Bruno
were
Mars
they fucking
on lighters.
thinking? What were they thinking? That song sticks out like such a sore fucking thumb.
Honestly,
and I know.
honestly,
if you read Genius, it says Royce da 5'9" came up with that song and Eminem wanted to hop on it. Nah, that's an Eminem original right there. You cannot convince me otherwise that Eminem didn't come up with that stupid fucking song first. No way. No way.
I think that song is honestly more bearable than some of the other shit here, to be honest. Like, I don't find that song to be super. I think it's more bearable than like
Fast
a
Lane
Kiss,
is so
which has like a
cringy.
fucking awful bass line. Now, to be fair, the song of Kiss does have maybe my favorite line on the whole album, where he's like, you're giving me head in a boxing stance, and then also he's like, you got 5 things you're in charge of, and that's sucking a dick, sucking a dick, sucking a dick, sucking a dick, and sucking a dick. That's fun. I thought that was funny. Maybe I'm a shitty person. I thought that was really fucking funny.
So who's the better rapper on here? Royce da 5'9" all the way. Royce da 5'9" has the less cringiest bars and actually some of the best lines, I think. Eminem just is so fucking inconsistent on this thing.
Honestly, it's closer to me. I think it's closer for me. I couldn't really call it.
Nah, if you were to ask me who does better.
Can I answer a feature? Can I say like Joe Budden? Like,
bro,
like Joe Budden was the better rapper.
No. This is about bad meets evil, and bad kicks evil's ass. At least in terms of cringy bars, Royce da 5'9" has some cringy bars, but nothing as bad as what Eminem says on here. There are so many times where I'm like, did anybody in the recording studio stop the track and go, Eminem, are you sure? Are you sure you want to say that?
Let me ask you a question. Did you laugh like I did on Loud Noises when Eminem says he'll stick his face in a rapper's stinky twat and go because I laugh.
I just go
fucking hard. I love it. I just love, like, it's such a fucking, like, I don't want to like say it's an out of body experience necessarily, but it's just so like
85% of the cringy lines come from Eminem. Like,
I mean, they're all super fucking homophobic and misogynistic.
To be
too.
fair,
not in a way that he's making fun of or satirizing the views.
but
They're just like straight up that without any nuance.
Yeah.
But June, this is
I think
hardcore hip hop. And these two guys were hardcore hip hop in the 90s when that was super prevalent. Now, obviously, there's no excuse for that.
2011.
I still think that's par for the course for that.
2011.
It's still par for the course, I think.
I think that for 2011, you're 1 year off from Good Kid, Mad City. You can hold people up to a higher standard.
You know what? That's a good point.
Like,
that's a good point. That's a good fucking point.
Not to mention, like, there are rap. Like, this was really popular. You know, at the time it was released, like, people were into a certain section, at least, of hip hop fans and just music fans in general were just, you know, like Eminem fans, right? We're
dude,
super
I can't
into the
tell you how
idea
many
of this.
comments I saw in my researching this where people are like, "Oh yeah, lyrically this album kicks ass, so awesome."
They
blah,
probably,
blah.
I would reckon they've totally forgotten about it. I bet you those comments are 9 years old now.
Oh
you know?
yeah,
like I bet you no one stumbles onto this thing that's not already an Eminem fan, because there's not a single song on here outside of Living Proof that is like a good Eminem song or a good Royce song, really.
Also, this album came out the same year as Triple X by Danny Brown. Like
as far as hip hop goes, there's far more creative and like, you know, not. I mean, like Royce's bars on Fastlane are pretty bad, like are pretty fucking bad to me. Like you know where he says there. And I mean, on the song like The Reunion, where they're being especially
that's the worst song. That's the
they're being
worst.
Really, I didn't think it was the worst.
Song.
Like they're being especially misogynistic. I mean, the Swagger bar is terrible. Let's go.
It's so
but, like,
bad.
That one does take it in a cartoonier direction that makes it a little bit easier to stomach.
The thing about Eminem is like just being really disrespectful to this girl in this car with him, and it comes off just so midlife crisis. Mike, it's like, dude, you are. Yeah,
I thought it was quite cartoony. This song, like he literally like crashes the car they're in. He's talking about like stop taking out. You know, he's playing his own CDs in the fucking car. He's like, stop taking it out. My accents sound fucking tight. Anyway, what I'm trying to say with all this is that like I didn't find this song in particular to be like a fucking indictment. I think there's a level of comedy to it that it doesn't maybe land, and I do think this album does come off like mean spirited sometimes. But on that song in particular, I mean, if we're gonna lend, you know, ICP artistic license to say like he wedges some woman's underwear up her ass crack, I think we can lend a little bit of credence here, even though it's not maybe as cartoonish. You know, I still think their cadence is like, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying we're not coming from a genuine place when we're like either one of you, when it's like, well, I don't like it's like this song is kind of problematic because the way they present themselves on other songs, I do kind of agree with that because some of it is a little bit much. Like the homophobic bars on Fastlane are really fucking bad, like really, really bad for Royce, I think.
It's basically a trash pile for the majority of the time. And we had the conversation like last week. I had finished listening to the record and you like walked in and were like, what do you think? And I was like, you know, there's not really much good stuff on there. And he's like, yeah. And you're like, yeah, there's like one good song. And I was like, yeah, the one near the end with the bass line. Yeah. And that's it. That's all there is. There's that one track, like the second to last song with like a pretty cool bass line. And other than that, it's just boring. And it's not so bad that I want to viscerally tear my ears off the way that I did for Seether. But it's just a pile of nothing.
I probably liked it the most out of everybody because I think some of the songs are still kind of decent. It's just, but if I'm going to listen to this, I got to turn my brain off. So I'm going to go with the decent 6. I liked some of it. You know, some of it was okay. But I mean...
6 seems high.
I don't think it's meh, though. I don't think it's meh, though.
Does the bad outweigh the good?
I think the bad outweighs
the bad does outweigh the good?
Yeah, because when it comes
mathematically, your score is positive. The instrumentals are fucking awful. Any song here that was like, these flows are kind of cool, or like, okay, that was maybe kind of a decent bar, like, every single time that's going on, one of two things happens. Anytime my brain switches to like, hey, this is kind of good, one of two things happens. I'm like, God, this beat is fucking horrible, or they call someone a faggot. Like, you know, it's one of those two things happen.
My enjoyment,
I'm like, well,
my enjoyment is just very surface level. My enjoyment is very surface level.
I'm just giving you shit. The number doesn't matter that much, but
I know.
I'm just giving you shit.
I know.
It's not a big deal. You've explained why. I'm just giving you shit for the number, which doesn't really matter all that much.
It's like a fucking decent 3.
I don't want to be remembered as the person who defended this record on the show. Horrible beats except for like one song. Horrible hooks on just about every song. Rapping is unimpressive other than like the technical ability and one or two bars that are slightly funny. There's nothing on here that made me go like, damn, that was fucking sick as fuck, which is like the point of the album. So it's a total failure in concept and execution. Because like they literally just did not have the pen game to make this thing be as awesome as they thought it would be. You get the point. It's like a fucking 4. What we got next week? We got something more pleasant to talk about?
It's a regular episode. And I have personally decided to go on another limb, like I have been doing this season, and choosing something that we don't talk about often. Gonna choose a classic early 90s death metal record. Mental Funeral by Autopsy.
So it's time. I name drop this masterpiece in our Karma discussion. We're going to go with the self-titled debut by John Larkin. Now, I'm still not going to reveal why this is of great significance until the discussion, but essentially, it's a very underground, kind of reputable, but not a lot of people know about it or talk about it, avant-garde jazz record. So, should be very fun.
I picked. We're taking it back a little bit here. We're going to pick something that's pretty much an easy pick, I think, but one that is familiar to me at the moment, one that Chaz hasn't heard, so I'm hoping to kind of break him in a little bit on this one. Velvet Underground's White Light, White Heat. This has been
fuck you. This has been Unwarranted Music Opinions. I'm June Lindbergh, here with Brian Courtney.
Milky Way Dick Vein.
And Chaz Jenkins.
Oh, so bad. So bad.
You gotta keep your composure. You gotta have a clap back, Chaz. You gotta have something to...
My clapback is eat Monopoly and shit out. Can I stick your penis in your anus? Just rap.
No, not that. I wasn't going for that. Oh, God.
And we'll see y'all next time.
I was saying stick your face in my twat.